Welcome Patreon brothers and sisters from around the world. This video is going to be the first of a long series of episodes where we are going to take a look at the various human characters in the Digimon universe and explore their background a bit more. On my word, this should be just as fun as the Explaining Digimon series, maybe even a little better because I feel it is obviously much easier to connect to the stories of actual humans. And you'll quickly come to realize that some character stories in Digimon are close to heartbreaking, just like this one. So before we start, let me thank all my Patreon supporters. This video is obviously sponsored by you guys and also by the channel Kongo Network, a YouTube channel entirely dedicated to the African country Congo where my roots take me to. You can obviously take a look. I'll make sure to put the channel in the description box. Most of the videos are translated to English. Now in this video we're going to talk about the tragic past of the character KEN ICHIJOUJI, the Digidestined in Digimon Season 2, also known as the notorious Digimon Emperor. Really a character that caused a lot of suffering to various Digimon, and at first glance you would probably think that this one is an evil character, but while the series is making progress you'll come to understand that there is more to the character than meets the eye. KEN ICHIJOUJI, to me, can actually be labeled with the concept of tragic hero, a concept meaning that the character cannot be considered your typical hero because of the numerous flaws he or she has. A tragic hero is a character who makes a judgment error that inevitably leads to his or her own destruction, and KEN's destruction already began in his younger years at home. KEN was going through something I feel only siblings can go through. I'm talking about the impression of living in the shadows of another blood relative. Well, now that I think of it, everyone can get the impression of living in the shadows of another, but when it comes to family, you will find out that it does way more to your own person and your own psyche. When you are living with a relative that seems to be a prodigy. As a child, especially as a young child, you might get the impression that your parents might love the other more than they love you. And that is exactly how KEN felt towards his brother Sam, who was 3 years older. He was a prodigy and the attention he would get from his parents did not seem remotely the same as the attention KEN got. In fact, from KEN's point of view, he felt ignored by their parents. He felt like he was living in the shadows of his older brother who seemed to show more prowess. And this was quote unquote a fight KEN was having inside of his mind, basically every day. The fight to get more attention from his parents and his jealousy towards his elder brother. The sad part is that KEN made various errors of judgments because, in reality, he loved his brother and parents as much as they loved him. There is no source claiming that KEN was mistreated by any means. Sure, his brother got more attention from time to time, but that does not mean that there was no love. It was always there. KEN simply was too blinded by his emotions of seeking to be recognized, even if he already was. For example, at times KEN did get along very well with his brother and couldn't help himself from showing admiration. They were blowing bubbles together and KEN was in fact much better than Sam. The kind elder brother even complimented his little brother by saying that he was much better at blowing bubbles because he was far more gentle than he was. Unfortunately, KEN's emotions towards his brother did know a lot of fluctuations, as everyone's attention was still focused on Sam on numerous occasions, and KEN's jealousy for Sam was sometimes so out of control that he even wished he was an only child. A wish that actually was not a wish, because you see, children can sometimes hope for things to happen simply because they grow angry or jealous. They are not aware or even remotely capable of really imagining the consequences of their wishes. One day, Sam was in his room and a Digivice just came out of his computer. The Digivice simply came out with no instructions whatsoever, or no manual that could explain what it was meant for, or worse, even who it was meant for. The truth is that the Digivice was meant for his little brother, KEN. Sam took full responsibility of the Digivice and put it in the drawer. He told KEN not to touch it until he could figure out what it was. He was the big brother after all, and was without a doubt concerned for his well-being and for his brother. It's the most logic step a responsible brother would do. Restrict his sibling for touching unknown objects to ultimately protect them. When Sam left the room, KEN, in childish curiosity, could not resist and had to see the mysterious object. He opened the drawer. He saw the Digivice his brother prohibited him from touching, which he ended up doing. By the touch, KEN was pulled through Sam's computer into the digital world, where he met his Digimon partner WORMMON, a Digimon explored both in the Explaining WORMMON Digimon Digivolution line video and the WORMMON Armor Digivolution line video. But we are going to make another Explaining WORMMON video where we are going to explore it as a character and analyze how its relation with Ken knew a bunch of ups and downs. When Ken was in the Digimon world, so much happened, and you'd be surprised how much time he spent in that universe. He fought and met new people, and one of them is called Ryo Akiyama, a character that deserves its own video because he himself did go through various adventures. Both Ryo and Ken fought together against Millenniummon, a very powerful creature that I briefly mentioned in the Explaining Machinedramon Digivolution line episode. It was ultimately defeated by Ken and Ryo, but Millenniummon had more than one trick up its sleeves. Upon defeat, it forced out pieces of its data in the form of dark spores, a sinister device that slowly but surely drives its human host evil, while also increasing their intelligence to genius levels as well as greatly increasing their athletic abilities. The dark spore was actually meant for Ryo, but Ken pushed him out of the way and one of them embedded itself in the back of his neck. He was lucky to be in the care of WORMMON and Ryo. Both of them tended to his wounds for 3 weeks until he was well enough to return to the real world. But pay attention, if he was taken care of for 3 weeks, it might mean that Ken was in the Digimon world for 1 month at the minimum. So a lot changed in his mind, which shouldn't really be a surprise. He discovered a brand new universe with creatures we have yet to understand what they are exactly. In the end, some say they are digital creatures, but then again, in some interviews, it is stated that Digimon are more than just data. So Ken changed a lot in the time he was there, and the Dark Spores was still doing its work. After Ken felt better, he returned to the real world, and he noticed that it was the same day as he had left. This might be due to Millenniummon's ability to warp time and space. We did talk about time in the Digimon universe in a video you can find in the description box. When Sam entered the room and saw Ken with the Digivice, he scathingly berated him for breaking his trust and kicked Ken out of his room. Even though Ken basically spent some time in the Digimon world, he still found himself with the same wishes he had before. He once more wished that Sam, his brother, would disappear. Tragically, Sam died after being hit by a car shortly after that day. Ken was devastated following the accident. He suffered from strong feelings of guilt, believing that he was the one causing Sam's death by his wish. Sam's death was also the death of Ken, in some way. I say so because when you lose someone, something inside of you, which can be hard to explain, also dies along with that loss. And ultimately we all deal with death in numerous ways. Some, after crying and going through a lot of sadness, they end up standing on their feet and accept the loss. Some, like Ken, have troubles accepting the loss because they feel responsible for it. And so Ken reacted very differently. How exactly he did react, that will be discussed in a follow-up video.